Hey there! Welcome to saas.unbound, brought to you by saas.group. I'm your host, Anna Dana, and this is the show where we chat with inspiring founders and experts to get an inside scoop on how they made their business a success. So, here with me today is Haynam, co-founder and CEO at Interact, a quiz building tool that helps you generate leads, segment your audience, and recommend products. He and his co-founders have never had a real job, but now they have bootstrapped the company to 3 million ARR. And I mean, how much more real can you get? So, welcome to the show, Josh. It's amazing to see you here.
Yeah, I appreciate you inviting me on.
Okay, perfect. Well, I've got a ton of questions for you, but first things first, can you maybe get into your background a little bit? The whole not having a real job thing and how Interact came to life. So there you go.
Yeah. The timing is relevant because I got started in 2008, which was the last time the economy was in some sort of turmoil. I was in high school at the time, so I was like 15-ish years old, maybe 14. I grew up really poor, so I kind of needed to support myself if I wanted to do the things that I wanted to do, like
Hmm.
the pursuits that I wanted to try and the shoes that I wanted to buy or whatever. So I had to go off and make my own money, but at the time you just couldn't get a job. Like it was actually impossible. The unemployment where I was living was effectively 50%. Like one out of two
Oh,
people was
wow.
unemployed. It was really really bad. And so I couldn't get a job. I tried for maybe 6 months or so, just no leads. So I decided to just go to door, trying to sell services that I knew, which was mowing lawns and putting in sprinklers and installing grass. I grew up in an agricultural area, so um, I knew those skills, and that worked. Basically, I just was able to offer services for a really low price because I was 15, and
Yeah.
also different. Like in that market, there was a lot of like chains that would come and mow your lawn or install grass and things like that. It was very impersonal. So I just took a very personal approach. I really tried to understand each client, and that business kind of took off. It did quite well. And then I was hooked. So, like, since then, that was 15 years ago now. I've just always done the same thing, like look for opportunities in the market, found things that I enjoy working on, and then built up companies. And now with Interact, it's even more fun because we have a really good team that I can work with and learn from as well.
Okay, that's a super inspiring story. I love when it's a movie kind of story here on the podcast. Um, but amazing. So, one thing, this is not the first quiz building tool that we're talking about here on the podcast. And at first, when I got to learn about those, I thought, okay, well, I did use one a few years ago. It was completely free. It didn't, for me personally, just because I was also such a rookie. Like I didn't know anything like how to make a good quiz or anything, but it didn't bring me any value back then. And I was like, okay, so how how valuable, or like at the end of the day for you, how profitable can this be? Right? It's just a questionnaire basically, right? And I'm not trying to underestimate or undervalue what you're doing, of course, but like now I understand the quality and the value of a good quiz. But how did you get into this in the first place? How did you see that this could be something that would eventually make you some money?
Yeah. No, I mean that's actually a really good point. I appreciate that perspective, and it helps us because we are constantly working to whittle down our ideal customer profile. And it's actually a very narrow niche that benefits a lot from using quizzes. They're great for generating leads, but only at the point when you have a lot of people already coming to your website. And a lot is relative. Like it could be 100 people a month, but those people already have to know who you are and be interested in learning about you and then land on your website. And then what the quiz does is, instead of just having a pop up that's like your newsletter, or a box to fill in the form, which normally converts at like 1 or 2%, you have a quiz come up, and it's engaging, it's relevant to your audience, and now you can use AI to do that automatically, which makes the quality a lot better. But the quiz comes up, and that converts much, much better. Like, that's how we came up with the idea. Was exactly that. We were building out websites for people. They wanted us to just get them subscribers. They didn't really care about the whole website, like, that we built them. They just wanted to know their number of subscribers. And then we built a quiz for somebody who requested one back in the day, when you had to do it like from scratch. And the quiz just worked better for getting email subscribers. So we knew that people really only cared about email subscribers. They didn't care about their whole website. And we knew that the quiz worked better than the websites we built. So we made a platform for building quizzes.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. Actually, it's great that you mentioned the AI side of it, because I went to the website obviously, and I saw the AI tool that you're building. I think it's still in the very early days, right? Because I went there, and what it offered me is to like upload my information, but then I also needed to kind of tell you more by email, right? So, and you can keep this information if it's something you don't want to disclose. But is it something like a lot of companies do when they're at the MVP stage? So it's something that you kind of tell people that it's already there, but actually it's a lot of manual work. So basically, you do the job, but you just trying to validate the idea.
Yeah, so we're at the stage now where a lot of it is there, but there's a few missing pieces. Like with AI, at least how I see it is, it takes quite a while to automate each piece of a process. And so it took us 4 months before we put anything live on the website at all. And in those months, I spent about myself. I did it myself. I spent about 1,000 hours on the prompt engineering, just to figure out how to recreate an interact style quiz, because there's lots of ways to make quizzes. We have our own unique style because we've been doing it for a decade, and our quizzes have generated 80 million leads. So we kind of have a process. So we reverse engineered that process to create prompts. And then the next phase of it is to automate it on the back end, so that it takes those prompts and then generates a quiz into a customer account. A lot of that is automated right now, but there's a few missing pieces that we're still working with different AI APIs to automate. So it's not quite at the point where a customer can just do it themselves. We could put it to the customer, but we just would not feel comfortable with that experience, because there's like just too many missing pieces. So right now our team is trained on using the AI different pieces to fill in the gaps, but a lot of it is automated. And then by the end of this year, it'll be totally automated, and we'll have it live on the site. So it's somewhere in between.
Okay.
We don't like to throw things up there that are like, what do you call that? Like a painted door, where it's like
Yeah.
not a real thing. So it's like in the middle, where it is human assisted still, but it takes our humans about like 5 to 10 minutes per quiz. So most of it is being done by the AI.
Okay, cool. No, I love the approach. I mean, I think it's a great thing that you're there in this market, and keeping up with the trends, because AI is everywhere. Kind of everyone expects to go on the website and there is AI for you, and it does for you everything that otherwise you would do yourself. But yeah, and the fact that you don't want it to be like a half-assed experience, then it's also great. So love it. Okay. And I get I want to talk about the early days, and like how you build the first version of the product. I think, what was it, like 2013, right? With a totally different experience back then, probably, right? But maybe let's talk about the way you see it now. Like, say, um, as I feel about the products that came to the market 10 years ago, a lot of them just kind of flew by, um, being very, well, sometimes not really finished, right? And people just, loved it because it gave a new feeling. It could offer a new experience. So it kind of was a bit easier to just get to the market with an MVP that wasn't completely ready. Um, how was it for you, and how do you feel about right now? Like, for example, when you ship new features, is it okay to ship something that's maybe not completely done?
Yeah, so I'll work backwards because that last piece,
Sure.
you know, how do you ship stuff as you grow? I just borrow this straight from Rand Fishkin, and his thing
Okay.
is like the bigger you get, the more polished your
Mhm.
MVP has to be. Um, so at the beginning, yeah, like when we had no customers and no brand, like we would just throw things up. Like when our site launched, there was no login system, so you would like build a quiz and then it just wouldn't save. Um, which back then, I mean, whatever. But now, like I would say at least half of our development cycle is testing,
Mhm.
maybe two-thirds. Um, so the engineering team will build something, and then I would say, yeah, at least half the time is spent testing that thing because part of our reputation now is we're just a bulletproof quiz software. Like we have a million copycats and they have way more features than we do. But if you're serious about using a quiz as a core part of your business and it is the way that people onboard to your list and then to your business in general, you can't afford to have that thing go down. And so now I would say it's at least 50% of the time is spent just polishing things. At the beginning, that might have been like 0 or
Hmm.
5, 10%. And things would break all the time. We were also figuring out how to build stuff in the first place. So I think it's different now because a lot of the things that broke for us in the beginning, you can now just like plug and play code that's like,
Yeah.
open source, so like a login system is open source now, much, much easier. Back then, you had to write it all in PHP, and it was a mess and it took, weeks or months to build things. So I think it's a different ball game now, but I would say it's a sliding scale and we are very far up the sliding scale now because the volume that we put through on our quizzes, like I think like a billion people have taken our quizzes. So
Oh,
it's
wow.
it's like you really have to test things before we go live, and that's a majority of our engineering time.
Okay. I loved how you called yourself bulletproof. So, what what gets a founder there? What gets a founder to the point when he thinks it's bulletproof, and you're also very firm on the fact that you may not have too many blows and whistles, but you are very reliable to businesses that have this as a core of their operation. So, how did you get here? How did you get to this point when you understand your customers and the businesses you're serving so well?
Yeah, I mean, there's two sides of the coin, and I'll give credit to my co-founder because he's our CTO, and he's the one that's really, really stringent with testing things and making sure everything, and it's amazing. Like I think that human creativity, like this is like creativity versus AI, like human creativity to break things is incredible. Like the amount of things that people will try with our software, and we will recreate these. It's like click this button 22 times, then refresh the page, and then add a question and immediately delete it and then refresh the page again. Like that's the
Yeah.
kind of stuff that we're running now because that's what people do. And they're like, well, it's broken. And it's like, well, what were you doing? And then they'll show me what they're doing. And it's like, okay. So he's been very, very good at that. And our engineering team now that is taking that ball and carrying with it, everybody kind of has that same ethos of like, we want to make sure that we're testing these things because that's what our customers really care about. Like everyone uses technology differently, interfaces with it differently. They don't use it in like the perfect linear way. Neither do I. Like nobody does. So that's definitely his side of the house. On my side of the house, understanding our customers has really just been like talking to them a lot. Like I've personally had at least 10,000 conversations with our customers.
Wow.
Our team, our most tenured team member is at 6 years, and she's probably had close to that number at this point, maybe a few thousand less. And then our newer team members are talking to customers 3 to 25 times a week.
That's
And
crazy.
that's just our ethos. Like, we can't understand what they're facing and what they're really dealing with. And what we've learned, right, is that time is their most valuable asset. And so, even if we may not have like the most full featured thing that has like all these crazy features built into it, if they spend 2 hours building something and then it breaks, that's way worse for them than, you know, sacrificing one little feature here, but they can build something and then not touch it for 10 years. And we do have
Yeah.
customers that are approaching that number now, where it's like you build a quiz, it does really well on your site, and you just don't touch it. And that gives you back what really matters, which is your time.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, that makes sense. That reminds me of a very funny situation that I had, and which is like nowhere near building a SaaS product. It was just redoing the website, and at the point when I said, it just looks so good, and I told people that it's live, and they went in with some SEO tools and like this and that, and just tried all the different pages and gave me like a list of 100 bugs and like fixes that I have to do. And I was like, oh my God, you guys, but like, I just thought it's going to look pretty. That's it. But, it's, so I cannot even imagine how many things you have to test before you went bulletproof. So perfect. Okay. Um, you're bootstrapped, right? And I guess, well, based on your story, that was the only way to go. Um, why did you decide to continue that way? Because there were times when Interact was already live, um, when it was super easy to raise money. Why did you continue staying bootstrapped? What does it do for you?
Yeah, I mean, we've had a lot of competitors raise money. A lot of them are not here anymore, and then some are, and the numbers being raised just got higher and higher. Like, the total funding in our market is probably over $250 million, and they will come at us every time they raise that kind of money. Direct ads against our name, back in the day, and maybe
Oh,
still,
I
like
hate that.
direct emails to our customers, like very, very direct, because we've had a name in the market for so long. And so when you enter this space, it's like, well, who's the incumbent? It's like, oh, well, it's Interact. So let's go see if we can get their customers. And then what happens is they get the customers use that for a year or two, then the company raises the prices way up because they raised funding, then the
Hmm.
customers come back to us. So that's a cycle that happens every 3 or 4 years. Super fun. Um, but
I kind of want to, on that note, I really want to raise a topic of ethics in
hmm.
advertisement and marketing, especially in SaaS, but that's probably a different kind of conversation. Yeah, please tell me more.
Yeah, no, I mean, the ethics thing is crazy. One short story on that, like in 2014, 15, remember Brexit,
Yeah.
like the EU UK thing. Um, we were being used by the government of the United Kingdom
Oh,
to
wow.
make quizzes to help educate people about Brexit. Like, how much do you know about it? No data was being collected in our thing. On the other side, there was this company called Cambridge Analytica, who was using quizzes to steal people's information and then manipulate the election. There's like a Netflix show about it. It's a crazy thing.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, for like a year and a half after that, no one wanted to touch quizzes, and we almost like went out of business, even though we did nothing wrong. It was just like quizzes got scapegoated by Cambridge
Yeah.
Analytica. So, anyways,
Oh, wow.
ethics has been
Okay.
a big part of our story. And just like we've chosen to like be very bulletproof, we've chosen to just like never touch any of that like sketchy data stuff. And it's like data comes through the quiz and goes to our customers and nothing else. That's it. Very, very simple. Um,
Okay.
But anyways,
Oh, thanks for
yeah,
sharing.
yeah, of course. That was a wild story back in the early days. Um, but I think our decision to stay bootstrapped is for a couple reasons. Like one, the position we're in now, right? Like my co-founders and I are 30, maybe about to turn 31, and we basically like can do whatever we want. Like we have control and we have a great team now. Like we have a COO now who is incredible. She's like an industry veteran and has come in to like help us stabilize the business. So we really just have creative freedom. And we would not have that if we were raising big rounds of funding. We would be like strapped, trying to push every quarter for revenue numbers and acquire clients that we don't really want to work with, and having to do all these things that we just don't enjoy. Whereas like most of the time, I mean, there's still stuff that you have to do that's not very much fun if you're running a business. It's just part of it. But for the
Yeah.
most part, like the big decisions we make are things that we enjoy and what's best for our team and for the people involved. And that I don't think would be the case if we were like, because at this point we would be pretty deep into funding, and we would really be having to push to grow, you know, really fast.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. How did it affect your growth or marketing strategy in, or if it did in any way?
Yeah, I mean, I think the guy from Saster, he's like, you can bootstrap any company, just add 5 to 10 years to the timeline. And I'm like, yeah, that's about right. Like, our revenue ARR growth is very linear over time, very consistent. Just kind of plods up very slowly. We've only had positive years, some years much more positive than others in terms of growth. And I think the way that we grow is just like we talk to our customers, then we understand what they're actually dealing with, we implement that into our product, and then we talk about it through whatever content channels are popular at that point in time. Like content channels have changed so much since we've started,
Yeah.
from like Google to socials and now like micro socials and then now kind of back to Google. I don't know. But whatever platform people are on, we just like talk about the solutions that we've found through content. And that's kind of all we do. We don't like push the envelope on, trying to, force the issue or grow faster than makes sense for our business and keep it profitable so that we don't have to make like crazy decisions.
Okay. Well, it's good that you started talking about channels. So how do you realize what channel is for you, or how did it change? Maybe because, like you said, it was Google, then social. Was it mostly paid ads or referrals? So, what worked for you, and how did it change with scaling?
Yeah, no, we've never really run paid ads. We've tried a few times just to see what it's like. Not really our wheelhouse. We have a little bit of a referral program. It's a really small part of revenue though, and really what we do is we we just talk about this industry. We talk about quizzes and we talk about email marketing and we talk about growing a small business and we talk about the mental side of it, like staying motivated and things like that. And when we got started, like Google was kind of the go-to where people were learning. So we had a lot of blog content. Then a few years on, we took up podcasting. So we have a podcast that's been going for a few years at this point. Then we took up YouTube when that started to take over, and people were going to YouTube to learn. Then we took up Instagram and TikTok and LinkedIn and Twitter. So we kind of just like adapt, the things that we talk about, which is helping our small business customers grow their businesses. And we learn what problems they're facing by talking to them. And then we like figure out some solutions kind of by like either our own research, which is a lot of the time, like we'll go out and try to find the answers ourselves. And then we'll share those answers onto those platforms. And then just whatever platform comes up, like honestly, like it
Okay.
changes all the time. Like, I don't know. It's all kind of the same to me. I'm like, is the same stuff, whether it's on LinkedIn or Google or Twitter or Instagram or TikTok. Like it's the same stuff. It's just like a different platform and a different medium for sharing.
Right. And now, as far as I see, you're kind of trying to adopt Rand Fishkin and Spark Toro kind of mentality, right? Other people are going to promote you other than, you just do it yourself, or am I getting it wrong?
Yeah, we have some of that. Like we do have like a network of people that we're really closely partnered with that we really value our partnership. So we do a lot of that. But also our team, like we have 5 folks on our team who are like externally facing, who create content, whether it's like our podcast or on YouTube or social channels. So we've kind of taken a more democratized, I guess, approach to marketing where
Hmm.
our individual team members are sharing things and talking about growing businesses because they've been here so long and helped us grow that like now they have their own perspectives to share. So that's something that's kind of different that we do that not a lot of brands that I've seen do, where it's usually just like the founder or the founders who are out there like talking. Like we actually have like 5 different people who kind of have the same sort of voice publicly to kind of talk and share, which is something different that we've done that's worked really well.
Right, but you are still becoming, I guess, very public about it, right? You kind of blew up LinkedIn. Is there any sort of tool, software that you're using to help yourself do that, or is it just the fact that you kind of went on a ton of podcasts lately, and it kind of blows it up itself?
No, I don't use any tools. I like telling stories. That's kind of like it puts me in a flow state. I enjoy it. All writing is to yourself in a way. So it's really motivating to myself to just remember, like, you know, we have been at this 10 years, and when you look at those 10 years, like things have improved on a day-to-day basis. You probably aren't going to see that on a month-to-month basis. It might feel really not great, but when you look at the aggregate, right, like things are going up and to the right. And if it wasn't, like, it's probably a good time to like question why are you still doing this,
Yeah.
which is another, I think really good principle. So a lot of that honestly is like, stuff that I would want to say to myself or to other small business owners, especially in our audience. Like a lot of people do tend to look at us and be like, oh, Interact, like they've made it, or they'll say stuff to me like that, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, yes, like I'm very in a great spot. Like this is a really good life to be able to live. But also like there's a lot of things that are the same when you're going through these different scales. And I don't know, I just think it's really a nice way to kind of share what we go through at our scale. So somebody that's coming up who's maybe at 1 million or 500,000, or they're getting started, whatever, can look at that and feel connected to it.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. It does look on paper like like an overnight success, or that you just magically figured everything out. But I know that there was a time when you went into a standstill, and for a while, growth was not really something you could find again. So how did you get out of it? What was the magic trick or a hack, or maybe just you had to kind of wait it out and find a niche where you could grow again.
Yeah, yeah. So we've really gone through two times where that happened, like the first 5 years and then the last 2 years. So I'd say the majority of the time has been like that, actually, where it's just very, very difficult to get the flywheel going. In the beginning, I think it was different because we were figuring a lot of things out. Like we were young, we didn't really know what we were doing. We would kind of like run a million miles an hour in one direction and slam into a wall, and then try something else and slam into a wall, like over and over again. Um, this last time I actually think was more interesting. So basically what happened to us is what happened to a lot of tech companies. Like in the beginning of the pandemic, everything went up like crazy. We got a ton of customers who were not our ideal customers, people that like really weren't ready to start working with quizzes. And then like 2021, 2022, most of them churned out. Like their businesses failed. They didn't like follow through with what they intended. As soon as the doors opened again, from the lockdown, we saw just crazy pullback, which makes sense. Like everybody's been
Yeah.
traveling the last 2 years, and I don't blame them. Like he's stuck inside. So what we learned at that time is more interesting because there wasn't necessarily anything new for us to figure out. Like, oh, we need to go and solve this problem of like, how do you make a quiz in this way or that way? Or how do you like, go to market or whatever? Like the stuff we were doing was the right stuff. And so this time around, I found it really fascinating because what we were able to do, since like, we have been profitable and we've been really smart with our money. So like we didn't really have to worry about like the drawback in terms of like doing layoffs or anything like that. We just basically looked at our whole business and we were like, all right, let's like pick this thing apart one piece at a time and just make it better. And it was really slow, like, and it is still slow. It's always slow. But what I've seen like in the last 2 years, like since the slowdown started, and now we're on the other side of it where it's picking up again, we've just gotten really, really, really good at self analyzing our own business, pulling out a piece of it, making it better by understanding like what our customers need, and then putting it back in place. So we've like modularized everything on both sides of the house, like whether it's marketing or product. We've put in a lot of systems. We've gotten better at understanding how to prioritize and move through things and hit deadlines more accurately. So we've just gotten like so much better across the board, and each person, and then also as a unit, we've gotten better at that. And so like there was nothing crazy this time. That's my favorite part of it. Like literally nothing changed. Like in terms of like what we're trying to do and how we're trying to do it. We just got better at that process of like understanding customer needs and executing on it and then sharing content about it. Over the last 2 years, I would say it's like, I don't know, 50% improvement in productivity. So we actually were able to switch to a 4-day work week this year. And that's great for all of us on the team in terms of our longevity and our ability to be creative. And we're now on the other side where we're starting to grow well again, which is like wild.
Super cool. I mean, I really enjoy this story, and it just looks like you're matured in a very sustainable way without the crazy panic attacks about the business going underground, or and like the whole conversation. I kind of feel like um, I could have been talking to a million times founder in his 60s, but you're super young. Like, how do you keep calm? How do you keep this sustainable growth? And how do you keep your peace with it? Because a lot of founders, let's face it, a lot of founders on Twitter, Reddit, wherever I go, um, I see they're posting about their wins, and sometimes I feel like when they talk about a product that they launched like 3 months ago and it's already at, I don't know, $10,000 there MRR, and it's kind of given as it's not a success. It's kind of, it's picking up slow, and they're not very happy about it. And when I think about it, I think, well, this is not true. I mean, this is a huge growth. I mean, you got to $10,000 in like without people knowing about you in 3 months. Tons and tons of founders dream about that. This is just, for some people, it's a dream come true. So, and that's why I feel like SaaS business is a bit in an unhealthy state right now, because everything's fast. Launch your company in 3 weeks, launch your companies in 3 days. So, how do you keep going for 10 years with the linear growth, with all the ups and downs, and stay sane?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I have a lot of help. I have one business coach that I've met with every week since 2016, and he's like part of our team now and is just a pivotal part of staying sane. And he's older and has seen a lot and worked with a lot of people, so I'd give a lot of credit to him. And then I have a second business coach that I started meeting with in 2017, and I've met with every other week since 2017. And then I have a really good support system in my personal life, like my partner and friends and family that I just lean on a lot for personal growth. And so, it's kind of just been, the refinement over time of like, why am I freaking out about this? Okay, let's try to unpack that. That's why am I freaking out about that? And I think the thing that like really destroys business progress is like following the ups and downs too much and like forgetting that like really what's going to matter is just like staying focused and working on those little things every day, and that's what's going to lead to that long-term growth. And yeah, I mean, I see so many of the same people like sharing on different socials, and it's like, oh, I did this and I did that, and I've been doing it for a decade. So I'm like, this is not going to last. Like, you won't be on here in 6 months. And what is the benefit of that? Like, you're not learning anything because, like, you just had a quick success and then you gave up when it got hard. And then for your customers, that's who I really think about. I'm like, gosh, like these people that are investing time using your product, especially if they're creating something using your product and then it just disappears overnight. I've seen that happen like countless times in the last decade. And it's so frustrating because it's just like, gosh, man, like no one wins here. And I don't
Yeah.
think anybody's happy with the situation. I would say what really helps with like staying in it for the long term is like enjoying the micro process. Like, I'm not even going to say, like, I'm going to take it down below the process because everyone says, oh, enjoy the process. Enjoy the
Yeah.
micro process. Like, specifically what I enjoy is like we'll launch a new channel and we'll go from 50 views a month to 75. And like when you extrapolate that out to like our whole business, it's like that means literally nothing. Like that does nothing for our company. Like, millions and millions of people a month see our quizzes. Going from
Yeah.
50 to 75 doesn't mean anything. But in that 50 to 75, you can understand why, and you can work on your process and get better at your writing or your video or your podcast or whatever it is that you're getting better at. Same with like how we develop product. It's like, how can we get just a tiny, tiny bit better at our product cycle? Like this product cycle goes better than the last one by 0.5%. And that's a win, and you celebrate that and you see that. Because honestly, I think that's how everything works. Like this, like fast growth stuff, even the AI coming out, it's like the AI seems fast because these models were made in the 1960s, and professors and researchers have been working on it since the 1960s, and now it gets put into a chatbot and you think it's genius, but it's like it's
Yeah.
not. It's literally been like 5 decades of work, and that's the reality. And then I think that's actually what's really enjoyable. And so my heroes, are people like James Dyson, the guy that made the vacuums, and he worked for 30 years to figure his thing out. And the people that made like Porsche, who same thing, they worked on basically one car for 50, 60 years. So I look to that and I gain inspiration from that.
Cool. Okay, that's great. That's like I said, a very healthy approach that I do not see very often. So it's really refreshing. Another thing that you said about customers and how it was really bad for you to get customers that didn't really understand the product, didn't really need it at the end of the day. So, you know, looking back at the situation, how would you how would you deal with it right now? Like, for example, I guess a lot of those customers, like you say, you are talking with customers a lot too, right? So that communication could have somehow affected what you were doing with the product. So how how to understand if the customer is not really right for you, and how to understand that the features and everything they're asking about are not really something that you want to build ever. So basically, how to say no. to customers that are not your customers, and how to be okay again with losing a part of the market.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of ways to say no that kind of make it more gentle. Honestly, when somebody wants to be mean, they're going to be mean. It doesn't matter what you say. And that's something that we've kind of learned our lesson on over time is like when somebody's upset and they just want to take out their frustration, really doesn't matter what you say. All you do is you don't escalate it. So you just kind of
Yeah.
let them speak their piece. And if it starts to get, to the point where it's verbally abusive, then we block and cut them off because it's not okay for anybody to talk like that. And it's not something that we need to expose ourselves to or our team to. So we do that on a regular basis, unfortunately. So it's something that we have to do. In terms of like knowing who we listen to, we just have a very, very clear ideal customer profile. So, like the long and short of it is like you have to be in business for 2 years. You have to have at least 100 people come into your site each month organically. And you have to be creating content on a regular basis, meaning at least once a week or twice a month. And if you don't meet those criteria, you're welcome to use our product, but we don't consider that in terms of our feature development, because
Hmm.
if we try to develop features for brand new businesses, we're not going to be able to develop features for our core customer base, who are those folks that have been in business. And the way our model works, our business model, is that we really start to be profitable when someone stays with us for 2 to 10 years. And so we're not making money if somebody just signs up and like gets excited about our product and then like doesn't work. And there are businesses where it's front loaded, where they do make money if someone signs up because they're excited and then churns. That's just not how ours works. So we don't really profit unless somebody's going to be in it for the long term. So then we have to be really, really careful with who we invest in on our side, because we can't invest in everybody that's like, oh, that's cool. Let me try that out, because building and implementing a quiz takes time, just like everything takes time. So we're just really, really stringent with how we filter out our ideal customer profiles.
Okay. And was there any aha moment when you were doing that? What helped you the most in figuring out who you're selling to?
Yeah, actually, the story of Porsche, the company, the car company,
Okay.
because they're owned by Volkswagen, and so the way their business works is they have Volkswagen, they have Audi, which they also own, and they
Hmm.
have Porsche, and then they have Lamborghini. So they own all those brands. And in their business, right, like the majority of their customers buy Volkswagens, which is like a regular car, regular price, like you know, I don't know what segment you call that, economy pricing.
Yeah.
And then you have your Audis, which is like slightly more advanced and more expensive. And then you have your Porsche, which is like your premium. And then you have Lamborghini, which is like your full custom everything. And our business is the same. Like 80%, 70% of our customers are Volkswagens, where they come in and they just want something that works. They want something that's functional. They want to pay a low price that corresponds to our lowest plan. It's called our light plan, our entry level plan. And then about 15 to 20% are Audis, where they want something with more bells and whistles, more features. They want more support. And they're on our middle plan, our growth plan. And then a few customers are going to be the Porsches, and they're on our Pro plan, so our top plan. And then we don't work with Lamborghinis. We refer to a partner software that we just kind of refer people to when we don't, because we just don't do custom stuff. That's the decision that we made. And so it's really easy for us now to say like, what is this? And then we have our tire kickers, which are the people that come in and they have a billion questions, but they're not ready to buy something. And we just don't entertain those people at all. We have a ton of content. We have a lot of stuff publicly, but we have 12 people on our team and 7,500 customers. We can't talk to you for 3 hours if you're not serious. And it's also not good for you if you're just like out there blabbing about stuff all day long.
Yeah.
So we really quickly, we put somebody in a bucket very quickly, and our team is very good at this. And then we have boundaries on our side of like, we can spend this much time with a Volkswagen customer, this much time with an Audi, this much time with a Porsche. And that corresponds to how much they're paying, so that we are not giving more than they're actually paying us for, because that's a disservice to all of our other customers. Because our Porsche customers are getting a disservice if we spend too much time working with a Volkswagen customer. And so that was a huge breakthrough for us, just to put that analogy in place, and then all of us are very quick to just spot which category is this person. And then it's much better for our customers as well, because they know what they're getting, they know what they're paying for. There's not this like gray area of like, maybe you can help me, maybe you can't. It's just like there's very clear boundaries.
Yeah, okay, that's super interesting. It reminds me of another podcast I did with Baptiste from Crisp, and he's a huge
Mhm.
believer in customer support, and that you have to talk with people. But we were talking about the way they do customer support because they are, I think, even smaller team, and they also are introducing AI into Crisp, and I was like, doesn't it kind of um sorry, what's the word? uh I'm so smart in my own language. um it's kind of fighting with the with your own beliefs that you have to always talk with your customers. And he's like, well, sometimes customers ask really dumb questions that they can actually Google. And, if the question can be Googled, then I don't want to spend my time answering for you. So, yeah, I think that also relates to that. So, perfect. I absolutely agree with you. All right. Well, just a couple more questions. And this one is everyone gets it. So, what's the biggest win and the biggest failure so far? For you
Mm.
personally, as a founder, or maybe for an entire company?
Yeah, I think the biggest win is our team. Like, our team is incredible. Like, everybody's autonomous. Everybody owns different aspects of the business in terms of like deliverables and making being accountable for things. And what it allows us to do is just have a lot more longevity, because nobody's getting burnt out trying to wear a million different hats. We all pick each other up and support each other. No one's trying to like take credit for everything and divvy up the pie of like who did what. And it's incredible, because I think it allows all of us to just focus on our craft and get better at what we do, which is really what's enjoyable. I think the biggest failure is something that you alluded to earlier with the Twitter people who talk about their overnight success. And
Hmm.
when we got started, the really, really dominant narrative was growing 10% per week, or else you're not a real company. That was like an
Yeah.
unhealthy narrative. That was just it. It's like, if you're not growing 10% a week, give up and try something else, which I think is absolutely incompetent in terms of that advice. But that was hard to fight against. We were based in San Francisco, and that was all around us. And we tried so hard to grow at that rate, and nobody won from that. Our customers didn't win. We didn't win. It was too stressful. Like, it just wasn't happening. Like, we're a business that grows healthily in good years. When it's not the pandemic, it's like 30 to 40% per year, and that's sustainable for us. It's healthy, it's good for everybody, or it's good for our customers and our team members. So trying to like push that boundary and keep up with the people who are honestly inflating their numbers anyways was really bad for us.
Yeah, yeah. Twitter can really put you in a very bad headspace. But okay, thank you so much for sharing that. And just one more question. I know you're a big fan of Brent Fishkin. Is there any other person and any other company that you're super inspired by? Because we did an episode with Brent. Um, is there anyone else that you're really inspired by and would love to see here?
That's a good question. I feel like in the current state of things, I should probably know if she's already been on, but has Melissa Kwan been on?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, she
yeah,
did.
I figured she was. I figured she was. That's the only one that's coming to mind right at this moment. Honestly, I get really inspired by history, so I like the Acquired podcast. I listen to like all of that, like the Founders podcast.
Yeah.
I listen to all of that. So I read a lot of like biographies because, like, I don't know, there's not that many like bootstrapped folks, at
Yeah,
least
that's
that
true.
I've been able to find.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Then I'll keep looking.
The search
But
goes on.
yes, that's true. But Josh, it's been an incredible story. I absolutely enjoyed it. I'm really looking forward to seeing what you do next, and we'll continue following you on LinkedIn and see what you're up to.
Yeah, thanks. Well, appreciate you having me on.
Thank you so much, and take care.